Hey everybody, welcome to another Marvel Legendary discussion video. Today we're going to be going over the setup for the spring tournament of 2023, week 3. If you're currently in the tournament, just remember this is just my ideas and thoughts. I encourage you to look through all the heroes that are available to you and to make your own decisions in terms of which heroes you're going to select for your particular pod and setup. If you're not involved in the tournament right now, I would really encourage you to join the Bageltop Discord, which is going to be linked down in the descriptions. Just keep an eye out for the next tournament and, hop in on the discussion with everybody. We're currently doing a tier list of all the heroes in all of Marvel Legendary. It's really fun discussion. You get to rank all the cards and we get to see kind of how they line up with each other, and it's a really fun experience. Now, you can still watch this video as sort of an educational resource. We're going to be looking at multiple different legendary sets, and we're going to decide on which heroes we want to bring along in order to have the best success. But yeah, let's just jump right in. We're going to be taking a look at the winner bracket, first with pod number 17. Looks like we're going to be taking on Kang the Conqueror, whose scheme is going to be train the Black Widows in the Red Room. The 3 heroes that we have been chosen for them is Miss Marvel, the Vishanti, and White Tiger. We will have to choose 2 heroes to sync up with the current team and counter the scheme in Mastermind. The sets that they could choose their heroes from are going to be Champions, Annihilation, Doctor Strange, and Black Widow. Officer stack will only have the standard ones, no sidekicks, which really, that's just painful. Playing any game without sidekicks is just super painful now that I'm so used to it. The wound stack will only have standard ones, which is good. And the bystander stack will be quite small, and most of it's going to be standard bystanders with just a sprinkling of the special ones. So the value of rescuing a bystander is definitely going to be decreased in this setup, as getting a special bystander could be few and far between. Let's take a look at the villains and see what kind of challenges we're going to be having to face. Kang the Conqueror's Master Strike will be placing a time incursion on the leftmost spot of the city that doesn't have one. And if there's a villain there, you're also going to gain a wound. Villains at the time incursion spot will have their HP increased by 2. And in turn, Kang is also going to get plus 2 HP for each villain in one of these spots. Now, there really isn't anything we could do about this. There isn't a way to sort of counter these time incursion spots from being placed with like a specific hero class, things like that. But this does put some pressure on us to make sure that we keep the leftmost spot of the city empty until it is filled with one of these time incursion slots. We will be dealing with high HP villains at the time and Mastermind, so we will need a team of heroes who can take this one and increase our attack output nice and early. For Train the Black Widows in the Red Room, basically there will be 8 shield officers in the villain deck with 3 HP and the Dark Memories keyword. When we fight them, we can either gain them or send them undercover. Since we're playing 2 players, if 6 villains end up in the escape pile, we will lose. We're going to need to increase our damage output pretty quickly here because we need to manage villains. We can't have these villains be escaping all the time, or we are going to end up losing. King the Conqueror is also going to be increasing their HP. The shield officers that are coming from the villain deck, their HP is going to be increased through Dark Memories. I mean, it's gonna be a pretty tough. Tough, at least from first glance here. I would say that when you fight one of these Black Widow initiates, the officers that are in the villain deck, it would be best just to send them on the undercover rather than gaining them. They will most likely just clog your deck up and diluting your attack potential. This is another scheme we can't do much about, but it does give us sort of a game plan and a mindset going forward. The timelines of Kang Villain Group and the Monster Unleashed ask us for a very wide variety of hero classes, either to gain benefits, shrink them down through size changing, or to prevent negative effects. It is pretty even across the board in terms of hero classes that we are being asked to have, so we simply just want a good variety of classes for any situation. This does mean we have some tension between our hero choices and the scheme, as the Black Widow initiates do have Dark Memories, meaning that they will get plus 1 HP for each hero class we have in our discard pile. I think the benefits will outweigh the risk though. Happy to see the Doombot Legion as the henchman though, as that does give us take some pressure off of us to provide our own KO abilities through our hero selection. But yeah, let's just keep that in mind. We want to be creating a powerful attack focus decks nice and early. Moving over to our heroes, we actually don't have a ton of demand from our heroes. Miss Marvel does provide two that we want to be able to try and fulfill. Long Arm of the Law asks us for a covert hero to rescue a bystander, and our uncommon card, Need to Stretch My Legs, asks for a champion hero team. And that'll allow us to KO a card from our hand or discard pile. Very powerful cards together, since Long Arm rescues bystanders and Stretched Legs can duplicate through Cheering Crowd. So I find that these cards are well worth the support. Currently, we only have one other covert hero, which is in White Tiger's uncommon slot. So we probably want another common covert card just to be able to activate these just a little bit more often. In terms of our spread, it's pretty decent, I would say. We have 1 Instinct, 2 Strength, 1 Ranged, and 1 Covert. We have 2 Covert Uncommons and 1 Ranged. We're missing out on Tech, so grabbing one of those could be a very strong move for us so we can get the full rainbow, but we will have to see. One card to point out is going to be Hogarth, as it is the only card we have that can dish out a decent amount of damage nice and early. I would pick one of these up ASAP, as it can dish out 4 damage every time. It can hand out wounds, which can be a bit rough, but in the early game you should be able to dodge that pretty frequently, because you're going to be discarding cards from the top of your deck, and most of the time it's going to be a trooper or one of your gray heroes in the early game. We're looking to choose one of our heroes. I would say that we're looking for heroes that give us a common tech, instinct, and covert card in order to activate Ms. Marvel's cards and to complete the rainbow. It would be good to grab one other hero from the Champions expansion to activate Stretch My Legs, and more than likely have more synergies with Cheering Crowd. When it comes to our hero choices, there are so many ways we can go with this depending on what you want to focus on. This is a setup I really encourage you to look through all the heroes that you have available to you. In general, when a setup is putting you under pressure from the beginning to increase your attack output, you want to try and use heroes whose recruit value is lower than normal. Some 2-costing commons, uncommons that are 5 and below, things like that. First hero I want to highlight is actually Nova, who I think could be our main hero for rescuing bystanders over Ms. Marvel. Not only is his rescuing bystander trigger a little easier to hit, but he also brings along the versatility ability, which can help us gain some early attack and take out some villains, but also be used for recruit when needed. White Tiger also provides a common ranged hero to activate holographic projection. Combine Nova, Ms. Marvel, and a few copies of the uncommon covert cards, and you should be cooking right away. The second hero I would suggest is going to be the Super Skrull. All of his cards provide attack and give us ways to use that attack in different ways through focus abilities if we don't have a way to use them for the turn. This could include the city being empty, but not enough to hit the mastermind, or the villain's HP is too high and we want to set up for future turns. Rock Solid has 2 ways to be activated through our other common cards, so that shouldn't be a problem. Third hero I would suggest is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. With them having 3 split cards and having all 5 classes represented in the hero set, it can really set up good turns for size changing. With them having 3 split cards, having all 5 classes represented in the hero set, it can really set up good turns for size changing the villains and activating our own Dark Memories. His 2 commons also give us early attack boosts and help us be flexible in terms of how we can gain that attack. Some honorable mentions will be Black Widow if you want to continue down the Dark Memory trigger lane. Clea if you want to manipulate the demonic bargains through the Vishanti, and the Ancient One could potentially be a powerhouse in this setup due to his ability to send villains into the astral plane. In a sense, it basically gives you another city space, which is pretty dang powerful. This could be a really risky though, as we are going to have a decent amount of high HP villains, and at times a recruit focused deck won't be able to keep pace. This setup does seem on the difficult side, as it does feel like you're under pressure from the very beginning, but as long as you increase your attack output nice and early, you should be fine. Alright, let's move on to pod number 18. They're going to be taking on Hela, the Goddess of Death, with the scheme of the God Emperor of Battle World. And I'm not going to lie, this sounds absolutely terrifying. The 3 pre-chosen heroes for them are Hellcat, Namor, and Elsa Bloodstone. No special rules to follow. The sets also are going to allow Secret Wars Volume 1, 2, Revelations, and Heroes of Asgard. Officer stack will be standard, Psychic stack will be standard and have the X students only, and the Wound stack is going to be standard as well. Quite a bit higher concentration of special psychics in this one, which is great, with over half of them being special bystanders. So when you rescue them, you're more than likely going to get a good benefit out of it. Looking over at Hela, she starts out with 10 HP, but has Bridge and Street Conqueror 5, meaning she could potentially have 20 HP, which is just absolutely crazy. That means we need to be able to take out the villains in the city in order to reduce her HP, or we have a way to move those villains off of those spaces. The Master Strikes will enter the city as a 5 HP Army of the Dead, and will bring along a friend from your victory pile that has VP of 3 or more. This is just a devastating Master Strike. Most of the time, this is going to be bringing in 2 villains in the city at a time, and with them being 3 VP and up, means they're not henchmen or the easier villains. This is definitely one of the tougher masterminds out there. Now, while we can't prevent them from entering the city in any way, the one thing we can do is control what types of villains is in our victory pile. There might be moments where you simply need to let a couple villains escape to keep your victory pile nice and clear, so that you don't get rushed later on. This is going to affect your score for sure, but winning is definitely better than losing. I usually don't play this game competitively, so some of my info here might be off. You could be screaming at the screen right now being like, you idiot, you never want to let villains escape or whatever. But yeah, like I said, this is just my opinion, so please share down in the comments what you think about that. If you have to let villains escape, is that okay, or is it like, no, you need to be fighting them any chance you can absolutely get? Looking over at the scheme, this is going to be placing another 9 HP Mastermind into the game. When a Master Strike is drawn, each player with exactly 6 cards in hand will have to reveal a tech hero, or they're going to put 2 cards from their hand on top of their deck. From then on, each scheme is going to be increasing his HP by 2, with a max of getting his HP up to 17. Now, there is an interesting strategy where you could potentially let the God Emperor take out Hela, but that is going to lead you into the end game. You're missing out on VP from Hela, and then you only get a small window to take him out before the last twist is drawn. Probably not the most viable for this tournament. Winning as quickly as possible seems to be the best way to up your score. What this scheme tells me, though, is that we need some common tech heroes or heroes that can increase our hand size at the end of the turn, because it does say exactly 6, so we can't avoid this if we have 7 or more cards in hand. Moving into the villains, Omens of Ragnarok and Hydra Base doesn't ask much of us. Omens actually provides us with a decent amount of artifacts through villainous weapons. The Deadland villain group is where we have some problems for sure. The main 3 are the villains who can ascend to become new masterminds, including Mr. Sinister, Thanos, and Loki. Thanos we can't do much about, but Loki will ask us to reveal a strength hero or gain a wound, and Mr. Sinister will have us discard some cards unless we reveal a covert hero. So we do have an emphasis on these classes to cover our weaknesses. Stray thought here, though, you could potentially end up with 5 masterminds at one point. If you grab heroes with Danger Sense, if we decide to bring in some heroes with Danger Sense, we could potentially use the scheme to KO all the other masterminds at a pinch and then start delaying the scheme twist. So you can take out the God Emperor and then start delaying the next scheme twist until you can take out the God Emperor. And I think it's going to be a really cool achievement unlocked moment. I might have to play this with that kind of goal in mind. Let's take a peek at our heroes here, and we do have a couple superpowers we could activate. Elsa's Uncommon, Defend the Shield Wall, asks us to play a bunch of shield heroes. While we can use our start cards to activate it, it's not the most ideal. We might be able to get another shield hero on the team to boost that. Bloodstone Pennant will let us KO cards, but we do need 3 different colors to activate it through Spectrum. So dual class cards are going to be good if we can get our hands on them. Namor asks us for instinct cards for Lead the Armies of Atlantis, and a strength card for Rulers of the Sea. Elsa provides a common instinct card, so that's covered. While Feed the Sharks is a dual card, it doesn't actually help us much with Spectrum, as it shares a class with Pendant. While we don't stress too much about rare cards here, Imperious Rex looks particularly spicy in this setup, as you might have multiple masterminds to deal with. And 4 of them have no tactics to worry about, so you just play Imperious Rex, and if you can activate it, you smack down a mastermind, and you won. Hellcat does ask us for instinct heroes from both of her common cards and an Avenger trigger for her uncommon. Part-Time also adds to the strategy of speeding up the villain deck for the scheme twist. This strategy is slowly coming together here, which could lead to some really interesting gameplay. Yeah, this is getting really fun, actually. So far, out of the 3 heroes, they seem to cover each other pretty decently. We have a strong focus on instinct heroes, which is great, but we do need to bring in some tech heroes to counteract the Master Strike, and another strength or covert card would be nice as well. First hero is going to be Beast, and he can be an absolute powerhouse in a deck. All you need is tech or strength cards, and you're good to go. Drawing them off of Balanced Act and hitting really hard with Dr. Beatdown can lead to some awesome wins. We do want some more tech or strength cards to keep the ball going, so you could use my second recommendation, which would be War Machine. Not only are his 2 common cards tech cards, but being able to fight these Hydra bases twice will lead to some very solid KO ability. My next 2 suggestions are going to go along this path of speeding up the scheme twist in the villain deck so that the scheme will take out the mastermind. This might not be the best strategy score-wise, but it sure is pretty cool. First up is Black Swan, with Apocalyptic Vision being the star. We can bottom cards that aren't scheme twists and get a small bonus when it is. Witness the End is already supported by the plethora of instinct heroes, and to top it off, Dark Foretelling can help us bring those scheme twists to the top so that they can be activated at the correct time. We want a little range support for Black Swan, so let's use Dr. Punisher, the Soldier Supreme. While this card also provides some tech protection for the Mastermind, it can also dig for scheme twists with Ice Magic, which lets us fight the top villain of the villain deck. This is a bit of a meme idea, but I think there's some merit to this. Honorable mention would be Superior Iron Man. He brings some tech to the table, but that's about it. Good luck to everybody in Pod 18. I wish you luck. Moving on forward, we now have pod number 19, who will be taking on Madeline Pryor, and the scheme will be Hail Hydra. The 3 heroes pre-chosen for us will be Agent Phil Coulson, Brainstorm, and Magic. No special rules to follow, and the 3 sets allowed will be Secret Wars Volume 1, Shield, Annihilation, and Messiah Complex. Officer stack will contain standard and special bystanders, standard wounds, and sidekicks, but we also get ex-student sidekicks as well. For bystanders, we have around 20 special ones, so the odds aren't great, but higher than you think. Taking a look at Madeline Pryor, she is going to be capturing some bystanders, which will cost 2 attack to rescue. If we don't keep up with that, we will be gaining wounds when a Master Strike is drawn. No specific hero can counteract that, so we just need to keep an eye on those bystanders and throw that chip damage that way as much as we possibly can before we get caught with one. Looking at the scheme, each twist is going to ask us to either give up fighting for the turn or give up recruiting. This is one of those schemes you can't really do much about. We're basically at the mercy of the shuffler. Out of the villains, Ghost Racers is the only one we want to have some control over. We fight them and we can either reveal a covert hero or KO one of our cards with a fight symbol. Could be good to get rid of your troopers, but them having Rise of the Living Dead, it could be a little overkill. So we want to make sure that we have a couple common covert cards to control when that happens. Moving into our heroes, Magic is going to have some asks for us. A covert hero for Rally the New Mutants to gain an extra sidekick, and a ranged hero for some extra damage with Travel Through Limbo. We have a sub-theme of wanting to use sidekicks, which at times can be a bit difficult to pull off, might not be strategy that is worth focusing on. Brainstorm wants us to have a tech hero for the time loop experiments, and a ranged hero for Borrow from the Future. These, I would say, are worth activating. Women Out of Time is a very powerful ability, and we want to pick up these cards for sure. They work very well together as well, so gathering as many Brainstorm cards as you can in one deck would be a really good approach. Phil Coulson is rounding this out, and he does ask us to have our shield level at 3 or above for the impeccable planning, and also a covert card for the build the strike team. But Magic does have that covered with her common covert card. Moving into our hero choices, I would say that we are definitely going to want another ranged and tech common card to help Brainstorm, and support for Phil Coulson in sending heroes undercover. I think Quake fills this role very nicely. She could send cards undercover to increase the shield level. Aftershock is a very strong card. 4 damage from one card can definitely accelerate you to take on the Mastermind pretty quickly. The other one I'd recommend is to lean into the Phil Coulson side of things and pick up Deathlock, as two of his common cards are tech cards, which is great. He can help us either KO cards or send them undercover, and his uncommon card can pretty easily provide attack and defense once we increase our shield level. And his uncommon card can be pretty easy to provide attack and recruit once we increase our shield level. Lastly, Mockingbird could be a strong pick as well. She will be drawing a card with Battle Stabs pretty easily. A little top deck manipulation will help with Brainstorm as well, and Spymaster reflects the Phil Coulson cards, so we can double dip on sending our gray heroes undercover to get some more power out of these types of cards. Good luck to everyone. Pod number 19. I would like to see some other build involving Magic and all of the sidekicks. I just can't seem to click it together, but I think going to the shield level route is a solid and strong option. Moving into pod number 20, we are facing off against J. Jonah Jameson and the Executioner Song Scheme. Professor X, Miss America, and Rogue are our pre-chosen heroes. No special rules, and only 3 expansions are allowed, which is the Core Box, Dark City, and Dimensions. Standard officers, no sidekicks, standard wounds, and looks like a decently stacked bystander pile. Let's take a look at J. Jonah Jameson here. He's got a whopping 4 HP. I mean, that's gotta be one of the easiest ones, right? Let's keep reading. He's gonna have 2 angry mobs in the form of shield officers. Gonna need to spend 4 attack apiece to get through those angry mobs before we can take on JJ himself. His Master Strike ability will increase the angry mob, but by investigating our own hero deck. It can be any card though, so it could help to thin out our deck of gray heroes when needed, but they are going to come back to fight when we fight the angry mobs, so it's kind of like a temporary KO, I guess. Scheme is going to be the Executioner Song. It's going to place a hero set into the villain deck. It looks like that hero is going to be Spider-Man. Once that hero is drawn, it's going to be captured by a villain in the city, boosting its attack by 2 for each hero it has. Once we fight them, we gain all the heroes that they have captured. If 9 non-gray heroes are KO'd or carried off, we will lose. We will have to keep an eye on our KO pile and escape pile as well for this one as well. We will have to integrate Spider-Man into the strategy as well, as we are sure we're going to be gaining at least some of them. Underworld has Blackheart, which will ask us to reveal a Marvel Knight hero to prevent wounds when on the ambush effect, the escape trigger, and the fight effect. But that is only 2 cards in the villain deck, so the pressure is decently low, I would say. Spider Slayers for the henchmen can be pretty good early on. When we fight them, we get to draw the top 2 cards of our deck that cost 2 or less. With Spider-Man running around in the villain deck, we do have a bit of synergy there. Let's move into our heroes, and Spider-Man we basically covered. We just need heroes that cost 2 or less so we can draw off of them. This is not a hero you want to split apart, as these cards can be real bricks in your deck if it's not a supported archetype. We are in a tough spot here, so we'll have to see how the rest of the heroes shake up to see what would be the best hero to support with this setup. Rogue is definitely a hero that we want to support as well. She's going to really put in the work for sure. She needs a covert hero to activate Energy Drain, KOing any card in our hand or discard pile, and we get a little recruit boost with that. Borrowed Brawn needs a strength card to go from a pretty bad card to an absolutely incredible one. We do have support through Miss America for this one, and in Spider-Man with his astonishing strength. Looking at Professor X, he's got a killer lineup. Psionic Astral Form will give us 3 total damage if activated by an X-Men card, which will be provided through himself and Rogue. So we should be, covered in that area. As long as the deck has some X-Men cards, you should be covered. And Class Dismissed will KO a card from your hand or discard pile. We are going to need an instinct card, but we also get to manipulate the HQ as well, which is very strong. He can use Great Responsibility for Spider-Man to activate Class Dismissed, which isn't the best, but we will do what we have to do to activate a KO ability, as that is the strongest way to reduce your deck size down to just the cards you absolutely need to win the game. Moving to Miss America, she does have 2 cards that want an activation from a strength card. While we do have that support from Borrowed Brawn and Astonishing Strength, it would be good to kind of have a strength card that is just a nice standalone card, deals out decent damage, but doesn't need to be activated. And we can use that to activate, all the other cards that our current heroes have. She also has Search Parallel Dimensions, which has a Investigate for an Avengers card and teleport it. This is a pretty strong mechanic, but as of now, we don't have any other cards with the Avengers. So we'll have to possibly remedy that when we choose our heroes. There's a lot of different directions you can go with this, so my suggestions are one of the many you could choose from. The main things I want my 2 heroes to do is to activate Professor X's card Class Dismissed, Rogue's Energy Drain, and possibly a better strength card for Miss America and Borrowed Brawn. Secondary is, those cards that bring an Avenger hero and give a little support to Spider-Man as well. First up is Squirrel Girl, actually, which I didn't really see coming, but she is able to activate Class Dismissed, find Tiny Friends, cost 2 for Spider-Man, and can also investigate to help us, draw off of Spider-Man cards. Her uncommon card can be activated pretty easily with Class Dismissed and her Switcheroo ability, and she's an Avenger team member to boot. I think this could be a pretty viable choice in this scenario. Second hero could be X-Force Wolverine, provides a covert hero for Energy Drain and Instinct for Class Dismissed, and a crazy good strength card in No Mercy. Animal Instinct works very well with Spider-Man's cards as well. Sudden Ambush is pretty easy to trigger. He's got the full package here. I mean, he's just super good. His team class isn't doing much for us, but he brings attack power and one of the best uncommons in the game. A third hero you could possibly choose is going to be Nightcrawler. He does give us the important classes that we are looking for, Instinct and Covert. He's a pretty bare bones hero, I would say. We're not going to be doing anything too crazy with him, but we can continually teleport his common cards until we get the hand that we're looking for to really pop off. He's an X-Men hero as well, so we can mesh with Professor X, pretty easily. Last suggestion is going to be Elektra. Provides the same hero class as Nightcrawler, but it's cheaper and she can work with Spider-Man cards. I feel like both of her common cards are never really dead in your hand. 2 damage for a 1 costing card is great. Ninjutsu replaces itself every single time, and Psyblades can really put those Spider-Man cards to work if you end up with a bunch of them. Like I said, choose one player to gain all the Spider-Man cards, as they need each other to synergize with each other. Good luck to everyone in pod number 2020. I think you can take the setup in many ways, so look over your options and go with what feels best for you. Moving on to pod number 21, looks like Carnage decided to get an organized crime wave going. Our 3 pre-selected heroes include Bishop, love to see that, Karnak, and Siren. No special rules on this one. Sets allowed are going to be Dark City, Paint the Town Red, Realm of Kings, and Messiah Complex. Standard and special officers are going to be included. No standard sidekicks. Just the X students. That's it's pretty interesting actually. The sidekick stack will be smaller, but you can bang on pulling the specific cards that way. Standard wounds and a bystander stack that is mostly standard ones, so the value of a bystander rescue isn't going to be extremely high, I would say. Looking over at Carnage, he's a 9 HP mastermind, not too difficult health wise, and whenever a Master Strike card is drawn, he gets to feast the top card of each player's deck. If that card is 0 cost, each player is gonna gain a wound. Nothing we can really do to prevent this, but just recruit cheaper costing heroes so that you can have a high chance of avoiding the wound, and also losing a low impact card from your deck so it doesn't sting as much. Looking to organize Crime Wave, this one is a real doozy. The Maggie Goons will be the required henchmen, and they're given the ambush effect of play another card from the villain deck. So when a twist is drawn, all those goons are going to escape from the city, and the ones in your VP are going to get shuffled back into the villain deck. We're going to lose when 5 of those goons escape. You can lose this one absolutely out of nowhere. You can chain into scheme twists over and over and over again, making all the goons you just drew escape right away. My only real advice is to fight the goons as soon as they pop up, even if you have to pass on recruiting for the turn. The villains don't have much for us in terms of warping our hero choices. There are some tough villains in the pile, but none that we can outright nullify. First hero we have is Bishop, and he is one of the strongest heroes in Dark City. I could see him landing in the top 15 or even 10 of the best heroes in the whole game. A very strong KO card, and whatever the cost, you get to gain a recruit through absorb energies when that happens, and a uncommon card that can dish out some serious damage as long as it's supported through ranged heroes. Remember that absorb energies will trigger off of Magigoon fight abilities, so keep track of that. He does ask for a covert card, which he himself can provide, but it couldn't hurt for one more. Same thing with a range card for his uncommon. That's not the most important or urgent matter, I would say. If it happens to be that way, then awesome, but we don't need to overstress about it. Looking to Karnak, he does provide a common covert hero for Bishop, and eventually you'll shift from wanting whatever the cost to be activated to KO some cards, and we're going to shift over to Brilliant Strategist to get one of our powerful cards from our deck at the end of the turn, drawing an extra card. Because we've been KOing so many of the bad cards, all we're left is with the good stuff. So Brilliant Strategist is going to be pretty powerful in the late game. Now, it's best to recruit Karnak, any of his cards at correct times so that we can actually use the attack that we gain when he's recruited. But I would say if you're looking at the board and you're like, I can't fight anything, even if I recruited Karnak, I wouldn't say just to pass the turn completely. You need to be doing something on each and every single one of your turns. Look at Siren. She provides a covert card to activate the previous two. So at this point, I wouldn't stress about getting another covert card. You're well covered. She has a focus on shattering villains, which is a great strategy for taking on the goons. Reducing their HP from 4 down to 2, and they have the bribe mechanic. It's just going to be chip damage or, leftover recruit to take them out, which is really great. That means we're going to be able to KO our cards quite a bit quicker, thinning out our deck even faster, so we can just keep the really good stuff. And we might have a chance to pull this off with Siren seems pretty decent in this situation. In terms of what she asks for, her uncommon card does need a 2 and a 4 costing hero to activate it. Karnak actually does provide both of these costs, and Siren does herself. So I feel like that base is pretty covered. So far, I feel like we have our weaknesses covered, meaning we can be a lot more flexible in terms of what heroes we choose before going into battle. Heroes that are more focused on counteracting the scheme or mastermind, or simply just very powerful effects. Let's dive into some suggestions. This setup's main focus is to simply not lose. Only way we can really do that is by KOing the Magigoons, and out of all the heroes we have available to us, Ghost Rider is capable of doing that. The main focus here is Blazing Hellfire, allowing us to KO villains from the victory pile to gain an extra 3 attack. If we can KO the goons, they can't get reshuffled back into the villain deck, thus removing the lose condition or greatly reducing the chance of us losing. Hell on Wheels is a great card, but does ask us for a Marvel Knight hero in order to activate it, which I think we can provide in our next hero selection, the Punisher. Not only is he a Marvel Knight hero, but he does ask us to have some tech cards to activate his own, and Ghost Rider does provide that with one of his common cards. The main focus here is Hail on Bullets, which will allow us to fight villains off the top of the villain deck. This means we could take out the Magigoons before they ever enter the city, nullifying their ambush effect. While the Punisher's uncommon card is less than desirable, Boom Goes the Dynamite is another great KOing powerhouse that could replace itself when activated. Another hero that could take out villains before they hit the city is going to be Professor X. He does ask us to have an X-Men hero to activate Astral Form, but we have that covered with Bishop, and Karnak brings us a Common Instinct card to activate Class Dismissed, one of the best KOing cards in the game in my opinion, as it also gives us the ability to refresh the HQ. Our main focus is his uncommon card, Telepathic Probe, which can take out Magigoons from the top of the villain deck. It is his uncommon card though, so it's definitely not going to be as frequent. A couple honorable mentions would be the combo of Daredevil and Spider-Woman, doing some top deck synergy pieces so that we can benefit from Daredevil's cards and then draw the cards afterwards with Spider-Woman cards. It doesn't really, it's just kind of a nice little combo of cards we could potentially have in our choices if you don't want to focus on the KOing, Magigoons or fighting them from the top of the deck. Like I said, this is a very flexible hero pool. Look over all your options available to you and find just two heroes that have a really nice combo together. Let's move into our last pod, which is pod number 22. This is actually my pod, so I get to kind of double dip here when it comes to our breakdown in this one. Mastermind is going to be the Hydra Super Adaptoid, and we're dealing with pull reality into the negative zone. And God, this scheme, I've lost to this one plenty of times, and jeez. Okay, anyways, the three pre-selected heroes are going to be Namora, Deathlock, and Wolfsbane. For special rules, there are no final blows with adapting masterminds. The sets that we are allowed to choose from are going to be Fantastic Four, World War Hulk, S.H.I.E.L.D., and the New Mutants. Standard and special officers will be included. No sidekicks, which is very painful. Only standard wounds, which is, pretty nice. The grievous wounds can be really difficult to work with sometimes. And looks like we're going to have a little under half of the bystander stack be special ones. So, that's not too bad. We're not really focusing on rescuing bystanders mostly, but it's nice to have a better chance of getting a special one than a standard one. Taking a look at the Hydra Super Adaptoid, we're going to focus on what we can prevent in terms of his Master Strikes. So for Captain America's shield, we will need a instinct hero to prevent us from discarding down to 4 cards. Iron Man's armor is asking for a tech card to prevent us from discarding down to 3 cards, and Thor's hammer wants a ranged hero to prevent a wound. There's a little bit of priority on preventing the bad stuff here instead of looking for working on there's a couple abilities in here that are positives for us. But we especially want to avoid the discard effects, and that can pretty much effectively just cancel our whole turn. There's a chance that a Master Strike is drawn, it's just like, okay, I can't do anything, and I just pass the turn, and that's pretty dang painful. You want to be doing something on every single one of your turns. For this scheme, it's going to be having us use Recruit to attack and Attack to Recruit, and it's going to flip-flop back and forth between, kind of the negative zone and the regular zone. It's important to remember that on twist number 6, we will be stuck in the negative zone, meaning that we will have to use Recruit to attack. If you're hitting the end game, you want to start focusing on collecting heroes that produce a recruit. That way you won't be stuck in a situation where you simply can't defeat the mastermind, since you can't produce enough recruit, since you KO'd those cards, early on, or you didn't gain enough of them when you were getting them from the HQ. You were focused on attack like you normally are. It's a tough balancing act. This scheme really requires you to have knowledge of the deck that you're building and just to remember what's in there. In terms of our villains and henchmen, they don't ask too much of us. The Hivelings will give us some KO power, which is great, but nothing we need to really worry about. First hero up is going to be Namor. Crushing Tsunami needs a ranged hero to activate her smash ability, which seems to be a little short supply. She does have her uncommon card, but we want a little more reliability, I would say. Our other 2 cards don't ask too much of us, but I find that having some synergy revolving around smash is always a good approach. Of note, her 2 common cards provide us with attack, so I think we're going to be in need of more recruit increasing cards, especially when dealing with this scheme. Deathlock is next, and he gives us 2 tech heroes, covering our weakness to one of the other masterminds. We will need to gain shield level to shield level 1 for authorized lethal force to give us 1 attack. Reanimate into service is how we can do that, but we will need a tech hero to activate it, which his other common card can do that. His uncommon card will give us 3 attack and 3 recruit if we're at shield level 5, which I would say is doable. Once again, another hero who isn't providing any recruit at the common level, which is a little unsettling, I would say. Last one up is Wolfsbane, and I would say she isn't going to get any gold stars for being the MVP of the match. She's going to freshen up the HQ, she's going to give some card selection, KO some cards, which is great. She's going to do her due diligence and do it very well. The other 2 heroes are straining against her Moonlight ability, though, which is a little rough, so I think we're going to need some odd costing cards so we can kind of keep the Moonlight alive, Pretty flexible hero selection once again. I think we just need cards that can give us more recruit in the early game, which we can turn that into attack once the game goes on. Fortunately, I am a little stumped as to how to approach this exactly, but I think I have a grasp on 2 heroes that we could possibly use. First up is Joe Fixit, with the main focus on being a threat and bribe. It allows us to use recruit or attack in order to fight villains the turn we play it, meaning we could basically nullify the scheme as long as we have one of those cards in hand. He also gives us 2 common cards that provide recruit for us, and his rare card can let us nullify the scheme when fighting the mastermind. Digging for that could be a decently solid strategy, as Wolfsbane does have a way for us to freshen up the HQ. Second one would be She-Hulk. She provides some strength cards to activate Joe's Fix-It cards, which is good, and 2 more common cards that provide that nice recruit boost that we need. I wish I had some better advice for this setup, but I'm a little stumped on how to approach it. The pre-selected heroes are pulling us in kind of 3 different directions, either shield level, sunlight, moonlight, or smash synergies. I feel like focusing on any of them leads to heroes that mostly bring attack icons to the table. We only need to hit the mastermind 4 times, but he's got a wide range of HP, including 14 for one of them, which is substantial. The only other way I could see approaching this would be to focus on the shield level cards. Quake's Aftershock could provide 4 attack on 4 attack on 1 card is really great, and it's also pretty consistent. And Battle Stabs from Mockingbird can keep the chain going by drawing cards. Let me know what you guys think. This is a harder setup for me to crack for sure. Well, everyone, I hope you really enjoyed these breakdowns and discussions of each pod for week number 3. I hope these suggestions help you in your setup or expand your mind as to what possible setups you could lead you to victory. Good luck, everyone. Keep your heads up, and I hope you have a wonderful day.